Okay, so we're recording now. I'm here with Matt DeYoung, which I mispronounce as Matt DeJong because it's spelled that way. And Matt, we have never met before, but I have met your product, and I'll just take it out of my ear so people can see. Now I can't hear in my left ear, but this is what Matt has created, and it is a hearing aid, but it's not the standard hearing aid. It's a hearing aid, which I have to get back in, that is powered by AI. And what I mean by this, to me, the deaf person or the partially deaf person, is that I've had since 2022 when I went deaf a number of different hearing aids. I had Costco hearing aids, I had Oticon, I can't remember the third one, but they all did one thing well. They amplified all sounds. But what that meant was in a room like this where it's quiet and you and I are talking, totally fine. But in a restaurant or at a party, which is where you want to use your hearing aids, where you want to be social, and we know that social interaction is one of the key parts of, avoiding Alzheimer's, for example. So in moments of social interaction, I couldn't hear. And in fact, parties became so untenable for me that I stopped interacting socially. I stopped making dinner plans. I would only make dinner plans with one or two people. You are young. You are not my age. I'm 60 years old. How did you have this idea to create what I consider a radical breakthrough in hearing aids? Because now when I'm at a party and I turn on AI mode, I only hear the person I'm talking to and not everybody else. I can hear them a little bit, but it's background noise. It's like in a movie when you hear the two characters talking and there's background noise. That's what it feels like now. So what's the origin of this?
Well, first of all, I'm just so glad that you're having such a great experience with the product, and it just makes me feel so good. And I think our team is going to feel so, deeply delighted to just hear how well it's going. The origin, unfortunately, is just watching my grandparents struggle in the way you described with like super fancy hearing aids and seeing the implications of, at least in their case, that isolation that came with the hearing loss had a like really brutal consequences for their overall cognitive health.
Right.
And I watched them drift away. And certainly the scientific consensus is that untreated hearing loss is a major risk factor for cognitive decline. I don't think it's not as simple as saying hearing loss causes Alzheimer's. We can't say anything like that. It's an area of active research, but I think it was the Lancet did a broad meta study and identified untreated hearing loss as the single most influential. It's a biggest thing you could do. You can't change your genetics.
No.
You can address your hearing loss, and turns out
there's also, by the way, the Finnish study that's for Alzheimer's, and they saw 6 different buckets of exercise, sleep, food, and social activity is part of what you do to prevent cognitive decline.
I think it's just intuitive that solitary confinement is not good for your mental health.
No.
Right?
Yes, we know that.
Right. And so, frankly, it was almost like a guilt of watching this happen to my grandparents. I have a moment that's seared into my memory, which is a painful moment of being at dinner with my grandparents and realizing that I was telling a story at a volume when I knew they couldn't hear.
Right.
I could have talked really loud so that they could have heard, and I didn't. And I caught myself. I had kind of given up on them. Yeah. And I looked across at them, and they were kind of politely smiling and nodding. And I realized that they had given up too. In the intervening years prior, they would have said, "Hey, speak up. I can't hear you." But over a number of years, both sides get tired.
I will speak to that directly. I would go out to dinner with my family, with my three boisterous sisters and my mom and our partners and kids. And at a certain point in the evening, my brain shut down. I couldn't handle the conversation anymore. It's like I couldn't focus, I couldn't hear, I couldn't follow the thread of the narrative anymore. And so you find yourself becoming very small in that moment and very isolated. And I've said that, I also want to make sure everybody understands while we're doing this interview. I'm not getting paid for this. This is not like what is it called, sponsored content or anything. I contacted you after using these hearing aids for I don't know how long it's been now, a couple months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it's been. It has been life altering because now I will go to the party, I will go to the restaurant, and there's even a setting on the phone, so it's you can do all sorts of stuff with the hearing. I'm actually going to say you should figure out how to do front voices on the button as well. But
you can just press and hold.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I learned something. But anyway, there's a setting for front voices, which I always do on my app. I did not know you could press and hold. That allows you, if you're sitting, for example, at a banquet, and there are people on either side of you having their animated conversation, well, the normal hearing aid will think, oh, that's what you want to hear. But no, the front voices allow you, if I'm out to dinner with my partner at a noisy restaurant, I can only hear him and everybody else fades out. There's also, and I've done this in a concert hall, there's also a concert hall setting, which really allows you to feel the fullness of real music. And that is something that I lost as well in just a normal hearing aid, which is that I love music. And I felt like I had lost my ability to hear, let's say Radiohead, for example, lots of little layers in Radiohead, and I just couldn't hear them anymore. Or Dire Straits, those bands that have multi-layered music, I could hear sort of the tune, the voice, and maybe some of the bass, but like everything else in the middle got lost. I now hear the fullness of music again. It's a miracle.
I'm just so thrilled. Here's what I'll say is, this was an idea that was 20 years in the making, but for 15 years, we felt like it was going to be too hard. Like the technology did not exist. And
what made it easy?
Say it again.
What made it easier?
Well, it certainly wasn't easy, but 5 years ago, we realized that it might be possible to use AI to train the hearing aid in a way that you could never program by hand, but to teach the hearing aid to understand sound at a semantic level in the same way that healthy hearing people do.
Right.
And in real time, filter sound on the basis of what it is and what it means to the user, not just what frequencies comprise it.
Right.
And so this was the breakthrough, and we weren't sure if it was possible, but we were all, it's almost like we've been doing this almost like out of spite. Like we're avenging our loved ones that were so poorly served. And the more we did our research into the industry, frankly, like I probably shouldn't even be this candid, but like the more upset and angry we got at the state of the industry.
Oh, believe me, as a user of hearing aids and a person with a brain, I was really upset that I was paying $10,000 for literally a piece of shit. I'm sorry to say, like something that would, amplify a voice, but wouldn't let me hear.
We put these, we were doing early days. We bought all the fanciest hearing aids, and we put them in our ears, and we're like, "Are you fucking kidding me? This is why my grandpa didn't want to put on his hearing aids. This is like, I can't believe it. I can't believe for years." And and then there's a classic thing that audiologists say to their patients after they pop in the first pair of hearing aids, and the patients are like, feels kind of like you're having a panic attack. Yeah. And, they say, this is just your brain getting used to all the sound you've been missing. And it's like, bullshit.
No. Yeah.
This is an inadequate product that has not gotten better in any material way since the hearing aids went digital 30 years ago.
And it felt like they also had a monopoly on this. It's like you would go to a hearing specialist and they all had the same friggin' hearing aids. Everybody, was pushing the same stuff, and none of it worked.
Yeah, for any of your users who want to learn a little bit more about this, there's a publication called Hearing Tracker that publishes something called the Hearing Industry Map every year. And what is so crazy is there's countless brands of hearing aids, but they are all owned by only 5 companies that control like 97% of the supply. So there's so much less. It's like the cereal aisle, right? It's like
Right.
Kellogg's or General Motors.
Right.
There is so much less competition than it seems, and there's a very common practice in the industry. Sometimes it's called forward discounting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Essentially, audiologists, private practice audiologists, are given loans to market and open their practices. And the interest rate that they pay on those loans is very low as long as they are loyal to the manufacturer that originated the loan. But if you start to recommend products, more than 20% of the time outside of, from one of the other big 5 companies, then all of a sudden the interest rate on your loan goes up, and it's probably an antitrust violation. It's called forward discounting, and it's just, if you look at how these companies spend their money, the vast majority is on, trying to lock up distribution and keep prices high, and a very small percentage is on making the core product better.
Right.
And, in their defense, there were very diminishing returns to effort to try to make the product better when you're stuck in the era of traditional signal processing.
Right.
And so our big bet, which was very risky and very expensive, and it might not have worked, was let's throw out the architecture of the hearing aid. Let's take some microphones, connect them to a giant AI, and see if we can prove that it helps people hear better. And we spent years on that with, some of the most brilliant people I've ever met. I'm the CEO, but I have to say I'm the least impressive member of the founding team, and like by a mile. And we locked the 2 technical geniuses. We have this AI scientist, my co-founder Igor, and then an incredible AI custom chip designer named Andy. The 2 of us had worked together at our previous startup company where we were building handheld medical imaging systems, kind of like visual stethoscopes. And that product became the best-selling medical imaging system of all time. And it gave us the education and the training and the talent network and the capital access that we felt was necessary to really take a shot on goal at making better hearing aids, which is something that I had wanted to do for years. So that's how it came together. And, I think what's really gratifying for us is like, we're just getting started. Like, you don't know this yet, but in about 2 weeks, I don't know when this will air, but late August, early September, we're going to release the first major AI improvement.
I think I have it in my ear already. I think I did the update because I said to my partner,
Are you in the beta?
I'm in beta.
Oh, okay. Then you have it already.
I said to my partner after the beta update last week, I said, oh my God, I feel like I can hear really normal sounds again.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm so glad. I didn't realize that you were already in the beta group. Yeah. So everybody's about to wake up and their hearing aids are just going to be like materially better. And, I think that this is the Fortel hearing aid is the first example of a truly AI-centric hearing aid architecture. But, I hope one day we'll look back and be embarrassed. It's like the first iPhone.
Right. It just gets better and better. I want to just explain to people what we're talking about here, because normal hearing aids, and even, these at the beginning and now not at all, the sound in hearing aids sort of sounds like an AM radio compared to an FM radio. That's what I try to explain to people, that sound sounds very flattened. And I don't know what you did with this last update, but I finally feel as if I hear the richness and roundness of sound again. And I also feel that this could be a breakthrough for, like, every time I go to a party, I'm 60 years old. So I go to parties with people from 50 to 70. Let's say that's my age group, my Gen X age group, right? Like, boomers, Gen X, younger Gen X, maybe a few millennials. But I cannot tell you how many times at parties recently somebody said, "Well, I can't hear, but I'm just like I don't want to get hearing aids. It's too embarrassing." Like the shame aspect of hearing aids to me is something that I've tried to work hard to break, because the moment I walked into the Fortel office and tried these for the first time, it was like, that scene in Helen Keller where she's like, she understands what water is. I I walked out of the office with, I forget the name of the audiologist. She was lovely. And suddenly the noise of Park Avenue was gone. I mean, I could hear some cars, but it wasn't like, there were times when I live off of Flatbush, and I couldn't talk to my partner as we were going on our walk to Prospect Park while we were on Flatbush. He knew just not to talk to me while we were on Flatbush because it's a noisy, truck-filled, bus-filled street. Suddenly Park Avenue, silent. She takes me to a restaurant. It's a noisy coffee shop with high ceilings. I can hear her. And then I did this weird thing, which is at night, I was wearing a type of hearing aid that if I put my head on a pillow and tried to have pillow talk with my partner, I would have incredible, horrible feedback. So then I would have to take the hearing aids out, and then we couldn't hear each other because, well, he could hear me, but I couldn't hear him. So we couldn't really have normal nighttime communication, which to me is critical for relationships. And then I bought a pillow with a hole in it so that I could have my ear without having the feedback. But it was like, then I could only hear out of my left ear.
I'm sorry to laugh. I just never heard of these things.
It is funny because then I walked into the Fortel offices and your audiologist was laughing at me. I ran over. There's some nice chairs there that are like, have material on them. And I put my head on the chair and I was like, talk to me, talk to me. And she was talking to me and I could hear her perfectly. And I started to cry.
Yeah. I'm so touched. Yeah. Like, it's, so that you talk about the richness of sound. Yeah. It's like one of the things that's so interesting about like the auditory system is it is so sensitive. It's not enough to remove noise. You have to extract the speech in a way that preserves its character. Like your partner still needs to sound like he's supposed to sound, right? You can't give people like robot partners, right? So, the first gen AI, we'll call it AI 1 for lack of a better term, was, the best in the world and really good. But we spent the last 12 months quietly heads down, pushing the quality. And the big breakthroughs came from, we went out into the world and collected a ton more data. Mm-hmm. Which, before when we were racing to launch the product, we were just trying to make sure, everything was in order. And we used a lot of, they're often called synthetic techniques to train the first gen AI. So it's like, imagine a computer, it's the most boring computer game ever, where it's just like people talking in a digital room.
Right. A computer simulation of sound.
Exactly. Right. So we use a lot of computer simulations to train the first version of the AI. But since launching it, we've been able to grow because the company's has now more resources, and we've had more time and a lot more hearing aids to go out and collect data in noisy places, and that allowed us to really optimize every detail of the AI, every layer of the neural network. And one of the things that delighted us is just, we were able to give speech more warmth, more roundness, more naturalness, while simultaneously improving the signal to noise ratio even more. And usually you have to trade off between those two. So this is like a true rising tide. And I hope it will be the first of many. And it just goes out to everybody, at no cost. And,
Well, I noticed in the latest update that, even with the best hearing aids, sometimes you're saying what to, and I haven't said what. Yeah. I haven't not understood what people are saying.
The technical term.
I'm not always like sometimes people talk with their mouth over their hand, and I realized to what extent when we hit COVID, like I was masks really.
Yeah, you were lip reading.
Yeah.
So well, you said something else that I thought was worth harping on, which is that vanity is major, right? The vanity of treating your hearing loss is a major fixture of this industry. I think the latest data is that on average, people are waiting, this is, again, on average, some people don't, it's more or less, but on average, people are waiting 9 years with hearing loss that they've been, clinically diagnosed hearing loss before they actually get their first pair of hearing aids. And like, that's dangerous.
Well, it's like when I ask people why, what is this shame? And it's like, then it's admitting that I'm old. And I said, listen, I lost my hearing to COVID when I was still in my 50s. Yeah. I don't care. I need to hear, and so do you. And wearing hearing aids is no admission that you're growing older. It's just an admission that you're like, I can't wear glasses for this distance, but I wear glasses for reading and for far distance because that's what I need to see when I'm driving or when I'm reading.
Yeah, I think that, it's vanity is completely understandable and human. I just think that the vanity should be more concerned with what it's like when you can't hear.
Yeah.
Like focus your vanity there on sort of smiling and nodding. I cannot see the hearing aids on your ears right now.
No, all right. Let's see if we can, there's a little wire right here, right? And then the receiver goes back here. And the other big improvement, by the way, for women. So one of the reasons I was wearing in-ear hearing aids is that if you're a woman with a receiver here without the AI, every time you do this, you hear it and it's like a shock. And now that's gone, completely gone. Yeah. So you've solved a very sexist issue with
men with long hair.
Yeah. Most women have long hair. And so every time you do this or this, it was.
I mean, isn't it ridiculous that, you could spend thousands of dollars on a hearing aid and it doesn't know the difference between hair brushing across a microphone and a conversation you're trying to have? But that is genuinely the state of the art.
Yeah.
And, it's not that the engineers at these companies are not smart. It's just that the expressivity of the techniques they're using were insufficient to differentiate between the hairbrush and the conversation.
Right.
So that's why this is such a big deal. I will say this, even though, we have strong feelings about the state of the hearing aid industry and, we feel like patients deserve better than what they had been able to get. A hearing aid of any kind is so much better than nothing. And
yes.
So and Fortel hearing aids are only available now in a few cities. We're working our butts off to make sure that they'll be more broadly accessible. But I just want to encourage anyone listening or their family members, et cetera, find a smart audiologist, go find somebody with good reviews, get your hearing tested, and get a hearing aid and, get the best one, you can afford. And that is going to be so much better than nothing. And
I'm going to give an addendum to that.
Okay.
And the addendum is that the $1,200 pair of hearing aids at Costco are just as good as the $10,000 ones, Oticon. There's no difference. They all do.
Well, do you want to hear a secret? Those Philips $1,600 hearing aids in Costco are made by the same company that makes the Oticon hearing aids.
I figured it was it was the same thing.
It's the same.
And we do need to talk about cost for a second. So, how right now Fortel is not covered by insurance. Some of the hearing aids on the market are. Our healthcare system, I've written about this a million times, is so fucked up. But how are we going to get these affordable to people that don't have $6,800 in extra cash lying around?
So one of the way this works, just for everybody's context, mostly, not exclusively, but mostly, the hearing aid customer base is over 65.
Mm-hmm.
And so they tend to have Medicare.
Oh, so Medicare will cover a partial.
Medicare covers this much of hearing aids. Okay. So there is zero insurance reimbursement for hearing aids in Medicare. Now, if for younger people or for people who are still working, who might have employer sponsored insurance benefits or, an ACA plan or something like that, then there are, in some cases, there could be some hearing aid coverage. And Fortel is, we work with insurance when our patients have out-of-network hearing aid benefits. And there's a lot of those people. So Like it's often a lot of like retired teachers, retired
Right.
doctors, retired academics, people who work for places that are like generous with the insurance.
Yeah.
Um, so Medicare, zero coverage. Medicare Advantage, which is a private version of Medicare.
Which is
That
what the Trump administration is trying to push on everybody right now.
it's an interesting, kind of collaboration of kind of business and government,
Yeah.
for better or worse. Medicare Advantage those are Medicare alternatives that are administered by for-profit private companies. Some of those plans do offer a hearing aid benefit, which is essentially a pre-negotiated discount. It's kind of like a Groupon.
Right.
And so, what they usually do is they use their scale to negotiate a discount on behalf of their beneficiaries. And in order to, you know, uh, provide those people with the ability to use those in-network hearing aid or hearing care benefits in Medicare Advantage, you need to have a national scale and then kind of do a deal with the insurance company. And so right now, we're small and we're just obsessed with how do we be the best possible hearing aid. And so, that has pushed us into, broadly speaking, a cash pay business, and it's $6,800. For context, I think it is worth mentioning that we actually priced ourselves below.
Yes, I did notice that. You were less than the fancy Oticons and the fancy whatevers.
Exactly.
Yes. 6,800,
Exactly.
even though it sounds like a lot of money, is actually on the lower end of that scale. And I really
and it is a lot of money, right? 6,800 is a lot of money, but we really wanted to make sure that we were not just a superior product in terms of the ability to help you hear conversation in more places and enjoy your life and not be disturbed by noise and all this stuff. But we also wanted to be less expensive because, these hearing aids are alienatingly expensive no matter how you look at it.
Right. Well, I have to say my son-in-law texted me recently and he said, I have a friend who needs hearing aids. Give me your intel. And I gave him a whole long text. And I was like, look, it's going to cost 10 grand, 7 grand. Do not spend that. Spend the 6,800 on the Fortel and forget everything else. I will house him here in New York just so he can go to Fortel. That's how strongly I feel about these. Apparently he is in New York, so I didn't even need to house this person. But
Right.
that's there to me at this point. There's no competition. There's just zero competition with what this is and what this provides in terms of a life-altering way of communicating for me. And I was even going so far as to talk to before you invented these, I was thinking about, well, do I need at this point a cochlear implant? Because it was getting really, really bad. I can hear perfectly now.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfectly. And your audiologists are amazing. The experience of them is amazing. Anytime I've had a problem, I write a little note and somebody writes me immediately back. It's kind of like,
this is, we always come back to what is the experience we wish we could have given our grandparents before it was too late.
Right.
And we spent 4.5 years just like heads down in the lab working on the technology. And it gave us a lot of time to think about how we wanted to bring them to market if it all were to work. Mm-hmm. And what we realized is that the better hearing aid is really only half of the solution. The other half is great audiologists, is great doctors.
Yeah.
And when we were getting to know audiologists out in the field, we were noticing huge differences in quality and a real kind of, we were nervous about just using the traditional channels, not to mention these sort of unmentioned financial encumbrances, like before we're discounting stuff we talked about earlier. But we were just like, I don't know if we would send our family to, 9 out of 10 of these practitioners. But occasionally we'd meet one or two and they were amazing. And it's just like having a great doctor matters. And so what we've tried to do, I would say, to the detriment of scaling quickly, is make sure that any audiologist we hire at Fortel is special and great and smart and caring. And so, we work as hard on the technology as we do sourcing audiologists. We're proud to represent us and see patients.
Well, in a way that makes me think of, the parallel here for me is Warby Parker, right? Warby Parker suddenly had really, really great eye doctors in their practice where you could go in and you get your glasses and you got your eyes checked. And that seems to me, I mean, it's not like, Warby Parker also did this whole thing with pricing, but like having the audiologist and the hearing aids as part of the same package in the same environment seems to be actually the sweet spot of feeling like you have a way to talk to the person about the product you're using. Like when I had a problem with my Oticons, I would have to go to the hospital that I used to go to. I would have to hand in the Oticons. They would send them out. So for 2 weeks, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to hear for 2 weeks. There was not a way of having the point person be also the person that understood best the technology.
Yeah, I mean, when you serve your customers directly, it creates many more opportunities to make the whole end-to-end experience better.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up Warby Parker because the founders of Warby Parker, Dave and Neil, are small investors in our company.
I can imagine that would be the case. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Genuine mentors to us. And, as we are now opening more and more brick and mortar audiology clinics, they have just provided, invaluable guidance to us. And, we really admire them. And yeah, like I would say, as you mentioned, right, the difference is that, they were very focused on, how do we create a very high value price point without compromising on design and chicness. Right. Whereas what we were trying to do is, make the product materially better in a way that's highly non-commoditized. So we're less focused on design, even though that's very important to us, and more focused on like how do we achieve better medicine. But I think similarly, we are both obsessed with people and great doctors. And I hope that we can continue to find great audiologists around the country. And we've now been fortunate in, we're hearing from a lot of audiologists who want to bring the product to their patients. And so now we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we go faster?
Well, I got to tell you something. I went to see my old audiologist at one point to just say goodbye and say, I'm now going to be treated at Fortel. And she's like, do you have them? And I said, yes, I have them. And she goes, can I see them? And so I took them out of my ear. She just wanted to see them. She was so excited. I love my audiologist. She's on maternity leave. I'll give her your name when we get off of here. But
yeah, that'd be wonderful. Our only sacred cow is quality.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's all I care about is like, if this is an audiologist that I would be happy to send, my mom or dad, that's the only sacred cow. And so I think that it's incumbent upon us to figure out a way to scale access to Fortel hearing aids. We're also now making them available fully online.
That's amazing.
In 35 states. So there's complex like state laws and licensure requirements. But so now in 35 states, we haven't really marketed it yet. But if anybody's watching this and, wants to try them out, but doesn't want to fly to New York or Palm Beach or Boston or Greenwich or whatever, we now have opportunities to treat. We've been investing in technology to be able to give people a no compromises, fully remote experience.
That's incredible. Now, you mentioned just before your mom and dad. Are your mom and dad having hearing issues right now?
So it's funny. The next generation in my family is. Yeah. My mom and dad are. They have their hearing tested probably much more frequently than is necessary. And they have healthy hearing, thankfully.
Yeah, knock on
wood. But I will say I would be very surprised if they bought a different hearing aid than I was. Right.
I'll call them up and say, no, you got to use this one.
I would really be shocked and offended. And but no, I have a lot of members of my family are, patients of Fortel. And that's true for all of our employees.
Right. So in essence, I mean, maybe you weren't even thinking this way, but you're also saving your future hearing because perhaps you too will go down that path. I mean,
you don't need to be a genealogist to infer, your fate when something happens to all four of your grandparents.
Yeah.
One of the most exciting things that happened early days is like some of our audiologists started bringing their parents in
Wow.
and
Yeah.
paying full price. And we realized, okay, we got to introduce like a small family discount here because
Yeah.
this is just not right. But just it was the ultimate form of, belief in the
Right.
product.
Yeah.
To bring your mom or dad in, and that's made us feel really good.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. When I pressed end recording, you and I are going to say goodbye. I'll text you over email. But I want to stress while I have you here that there's no shame in getting help for your hearing. That there's no shame in wearing hearing aids. It's so small. You can't see it. I used to wear the ones in my ear because I just wanted to hear, but these are above and beyond anything I've ever tried. They are a next step in the evolution of hearing aid. And I also want to stress, you're not paying me for this. This is not sponsored content. I begged you to come on with me because I am so excited about these hearing aids that I wanted everybody else to know.
Thank you for
Okay.
having me.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going to end the recording now. Bye-bye.
Bye.